image is stark. A 14-year-old girl, her life just beginning, found in an advanced state of degradation. Her remains recovered from the front trunk of a luxury electric car.
We're continuing to follow the story of a 14-year-old girl from the Inland Empire found dismembered in the trunk of a singer's Tesla.
This wasn't a remote desert crime scene.
If you try to run or if you try to resist, you will get hit on that.
This was Hollywood Hills. This case isn't just about a tragic death. It's about a failure to protect. The chilling intersection of a rising public figure and a vulnerable teen, and how the very evidence meant to bring justice was initially withheld from the public. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was just 14 years old, a young girl from Lake Elsinore, California, with a bright future ahead of her. Her family describes her as vibrant and full of life, a typical teenager navigating the complexities of adolescence. She loved music like many her age, and like many, she found herself drawn into the orbit of a new, rising alt-pop sensation known as David, or David Anthony Burke. David's career was taking off. His music, often described as dark and atmospheric, resonated with a young audience. By early 2024, Celeste was seen interacting with him, even appearing on a Twitch livestream and backstage at one of his Los Angeles concerts. Her family, concerned for her safety, reported her missing multiple times throughout 2024. These were not isolated incidents. They were repeated cries for help from a family who felt their daughter was slipping away. This wasn't a sudden, out-of-the-blue disappearance. There was a pattern, a growing unease that her family tried to address. But what they couldn't have known was the troubling endpoint of this trajectory. On April 23, 2025, Celeste Rivas Hernandez was last seen. Prosecutors allege she went to David's home in the Hollywood Hills. That was the last day she was known to be alive. 5 months later, on September 8, 2025, her badly degraded remains were discovered, not in a remote location, but in the front trunk of David's impounded Tesla. The discovery came one day after what would have been her 15th birthday. This discovery immediately sparked a national conversation. How could a 14-year-old girl end up in such a disturbing state, in the vehicle of a prominent musician? The initial silence from law enforcement was deafening. The autopsy report, which held crucial answers, was sealed for months, creating a vacuum filled with speculation and frustration. Was this a case of a young girl caught in a dangerous situation with unforeseen consequences, or something far more deliberate and sinister? The evidence, once it began to surface, painted a chilling picture. But to truly understand what happened to Celeste, we need to look beyond the headlines and into the forensic details, the often unseen work that, piece by piece, attempts to reconstruct the truth from the fragments left behind. When Celeste's remains were finally recovered, their condition presented a significant challenge to forensic investigators. The medical examiner's office described them as severely degraded, in an advanced state of degradation. This advanced state often complicates the most basic of forensic tasks, like determining the precise time of death or identifying all injuries. Despite these challenges, the medical examiner was able to determine the cause of death: multiple penetrating injuries. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. This conclusion, while direct, starkly contrasts with the initial uncertainty surrounding the case. Beyond the cause of death, the physical state of the remains told a story of deliberate alteration. Celeste's remains showed signs of separation. This, combined with a degraded state, would have made identification and investigation far more difficult. The toxicology report was another piece of the puzzle, though one with its own set of complexities. Initial results showed a low level of ethanol, which could be a post-mortem change, and a presumptive positive for MDMA and methamphetamines. However, the advanced state of degradation of the remains meant these presumptive positives were later deemed inconclusive or negative for some substances. This highlights a critical challenge in forensic toxicology. The reliability of results from highly degraded biological material can be significantly compromised by post-mortem chemical changes. It means that while traces of substances might be detected, their presence and effect on the living individual are much harder to interpret with certainty. But where the physical evidence was struggling against the forces of nature, A different kind of evidence was emerging: digital forensics. Investigators obtained search warrants for David's phone and iCloud accounts. What they found, according to prosecutors, was damning. A significant amount of child pornography was allegedly discovered on his iCloud. This digital footprint, if proven, fundamentally changes the narrative of this case. It moves it from a tragic accident or a spontaneous act of violence to something potentially premeditated, driven by a darker, more disturbing motive. The allegations from prosecutors are that David killed Celeste because she threatened to expose their sexual relationship, which they claim began when she was 13. The fear, they assert, was that this exposure would ruin his rapidly ascending music career. This alleged motive of financial gain and witness elimination adds a special circumstance to the murder charge, elevating its severity. So we have a young girl found in the most disturbing circumstances, and a popular musician facing charges that suggest not just murder, but a deliberate effort to silence her. But the path to these charges was not straightforward. The investigation itself faced scrutiny. For months, the medical examiner's office was compelled to seal Celeste's autopsy report at the request of law enforcement. This decision drew criticism, not just from the public and Celeste's grieving family, but also from the medical examiner's office itself, which cited concerns about transparency. Sealing such a critical document, especially in a case involving a minor and a public figure, can fuel distrust and allow speculation to fester, potentially hindering public cooperation. Furthermore, before David's arrest, 3 separate grand juries were convened. Grand juries are designed to determine if there's enough evidence to bring charges. Yet, in this case, despite gathering evidence, no indictment was returned until April 2026. This period of delay, combined with the sealed autopsy, raises questions about the initial strength of the case presented, or perhaps the challenges investigators faced in connecting all the disparate pieces of evidence. It took time and perhaps a more comprehensive look at the digital evidence to move forward. For Celeste's family, this period of uncertainty, the sealed reports, and the lack of immediate charges must have been agonizing. Their daughter was gone, her remains recovered in a disturbing state, yet the full picture of what happened and who was responsible remained shrouded in official silence. That her body was found just one day after what would have been her 15th birthday adds another layer of profound grief to an already unbearable situation. The human cost here is immense. A young life ended, a family shattered, and the public left grappling with the disturbing details. When institutions, whether law enforcement or the justice system, appear less than transparent or move slowly, the pain for those directly affected is amplified. It erodes trust and denies families the closure they desperately seek. But the legal process did eventually move forward. David Anthony Burke, David, was arrested on April 16, 2026, and subsequently charged with first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, and unlawful alteration of human remains. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. The preliminary evidentiary hearing is scheduled for May 1st, 2026. This will be the first opportunity for much of the evidence, including the full details of the digital findings, to be publicly presented and challenged. Prosecutors are seeking to hold David without bail, emphasizing the severity of the charges and the alleged special circumstances of murder for financial gain and witness elimination. This case, regardless of its ultimate legal outcome, serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist, particularly for young people when they enter the often unregulated world of online connections and celebrity. It highlights the critical role of digital forensics in modern criminal investigations, often providing the clearest picture when physical evidence is compromised. And it underscores the constant tension between the need for thorough investigation and the public's right to transparency, especially when a child's life is tragically cut short. The image of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, vibrant and full of life, stands in stark contrast to the disturbing discovery in that Tesla's front trunk. This channel often examines cases where forensic science sheds light on the darkest corners of human behavior. The story of Celeste Rivas Hernandez is one of those cases where the science both physical and digital, attempts to speak for those who can no longer speak for themselves. If you want to understand how seemingly minor details can unravel a complex web of deceit, then you'll want to watch our next video, where we explore the forensic entomology that cracked a cold case, revealing a timeline no one expected.